All right, all right, all right. It is Tuesday night. Well, it is Tuesday night. But for everybody who's watching, it is Wednesday night. So
That's
I want
right.
to welcome everybody to the South Carolina NORML Cannabis Conversation. As you know, every Wednesday, South Carolina chapter of the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws likes to talk about marijuana and South Carolina or what else is going on around the country and around the world, shall we say. I need to click a little button over here. I want to kind of start with our welcome tonight. But before I get started with our welcome, I do want to just let you know we have pre-recorded the show this evening. Due to unforeseen circumstances, it was a little bit easier for us to kind of pre-record the podcast so we could spend a little bit of time with you tonight. Unfortunately, we won't be able to interact live through the chats as we'd like to do so much with you, but look for us again next Wednesday live. With that, I want to mention that I welcome everybody who's joining the call tonight. As always, all of our meetings are an environment of education and awareness and are not an open market for the sale, purchase, or distribution of cannabis. We do not encourage or condone illegal behavior of any kind. Also, I'd like to remind you at this point too, follow our social media. One of these days I'll update this banner, but follow us on Instagram at SCNormal. Follow us on Facebook at I think SCNormal, and I believe it's Twitter is NormalSC, but just search South Carolina Normal and you'll find us. And also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click that bell button so that you get notifications when we're getting ready to go live with our podcasts. And last but not least, I'm going to throw out there a thank you to our sponsors. I'm actually going to thank one of them right up. Where did I put it? One of our sponsors is 420 Print Media at 420printmedia.com. Just supplied us with a nice little supply of banners, posters to be used for our Digital Dozens campaign that's coming up, fundraiser coming up all of April. Awesome two-sided sign. So a little shout out to 420printmedia.com for that donation. And always check out our website at scnormal.org and visit the sponsor section to see new sponsors as they're coming on board. And we are starting to get some new people on board, and support those sponsors as they're the ones that help support us in our efforts to reform marijuana laws here in South Carolina, along with our members as well. So, all righty, that's about what I got to start here. I'm going to throw up the intro and agenda and say, hey, VP, what you got for us tonight?
What's up? What's up, Scott? Yes, tonight, more like this evening for me because I am on a different type of time. Literally, I'm out in Arizona right now, and the time difference is definitely massive. But very glad that we were able to do this so that we could be out there with the peeps. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about South Carolina Compassionate Care Act or Compassionate Care Alliance. They held a press conference today. Once again, that's on Tuesday, March 28th. So Scott went up there, so he's going to talk a little bit about that. And then I'm also going to talk about my experience here in Arizona where marijuana is legalized, and talk a little bit about my experience at some of the dispensaries. So, Scott, how'd it go?
Um, I thought it was a very good turnout overall. I heard a few people saying, geez, I wish there were more supporters come out. And I have to always agree with that. It's challenging to get the crowds out, especially on a Tuesday. People have things that they have to do. They can't just drop of a hat, travel to the State House, and hang out for a press conference. But there definitely was some news coverage there. There were some legislators there, senators and House representatives. Matter of fact, I saw my House representative um, Spencer Wetmore there in the crowd, standing behind the podium. They had a nurse practitioner speaking. They had a pharmacist speaking. They had a number of veterans speaking as well. Um, So overall, between the legislators speaking, of course, Jill Swing kicked it off. She had, talked about it a little bit. And the gist of it, I wasn't exactly sure what the gist or why they had even initiated the press conference. My understanding of it was basically the gist of it was after the I don't even want to call it a floor debate, the discussion by the Senate last week to say that they really weren't not going to prioritize moving this legislation to a floor vote. They're claiming it hadn't been vetted, although we've been working on it for 8 years, and they've had hours and hours of testimony by experts, by citizens, by patients, by veterans. And with the crossover date just shortly away, where the bill needs to cross over, be voted from the Senate and cross over to the House, or it's done for this session, for this half of the session, and will be re-brought up next year. So they're trying to kick the can down the road, saying that constituents don't care about this issue, and that the medical marijuana has no actual medical value, and the gateway, and what about the children? I mean, all these reasons that some of our legislators, I can't say all because some of them were there in support today, but enough of our legislators feel that way that they said, nah, we don't feel like considering this. And I want to be very clear, this was strictly about medical access with a very limited 12 option, I believe, qualifying condition. It wasn't like they want to make it available to the masses. And I mean, it sort of irked me a little bit because even some of the speakers, I want to say experts like the nurse practitioner and such, mentioned we're not supporting recreational marijuana here, and it made it's all cannabis. So I mean, it really kind of frustrates me. And the other side that frustrates me, because I had this conversation with somebody else, kind of referring back to your bucket theory that we've talked about in the past. And, we're looking for this little bucket for some patients that can use it, some veterans that can use it, but it really does not benefit the majority of the constituency here in South Carolina. And of course, what we're trying to do is, I'll say it like I try and say it, like I've been trying to say it pretty regularly, is I don't care if someone consumes for medication, meditation, recreation, relaxation, or sacrament. We don't believe anybody should go to prison for simple cannabis possession. And so that's
Facts.
our stance on it.
Yeah.
And I've heard it said before, all cannabis use is medical, whether it's intentional or not.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
so there was
Yeah.
that. So they were kind of pleading with our legislators, our governing body, to move forward and bring this to a floor vote and don't make folks wait another year till next year. I did not get a chance to watch any news tonight, so I don't know if it's gotten any airplay immediately or not. I believe they were trying to live stream it to their Facebook, but I heard there was some audio issues. I don't know for sure. We've had experience with that. We know what that's like. But they had a good crowd. I mean, what impressed me was the number of politicians that were there. That they were actually, had sitting legislators there with them to try and urge the other legislators to move this forward. So I felt good about it. Overall, I felt good about it. But beyond that, you kind of know my feeling on this legislation.
Yeah, for sure. I share the same sentiments of I feel like it's very limiting. And I still, even though the advocacy is what it is, which is, we talk about legalizing and things of that nature, and is it getting to some people at least, instead of like right now where no one can get anything, having conversations about people having something is definitely nice to have. It's definitely not my ideal. And we've said before where it's like, do your thing, that group definitely is, putting their work into what their end goal is. So that is, that's always a thumbs up for people, putting in work towards their goals. I think that, especially being, I know I feel like I have like a push and pull with it. Like there's times where I'm like, hey, go do your thing. And then there's times where I'm like, man, but couldn't it just be simple if we just like legalize, like, I absolutely have that space of, and that's just my own transparency when it comes to what it is that we're pushing for. Because, just to me it seems, even to hear people say, like what you said, like at that press conference, someone saying, we're not here for recreational. And it's like, well, what, how do you know what recreational is versus medical? Like, what does that look like when someone is taking, like, if you take the same exact dosage or flower or whatever it may be, and you got two different people, what makes it different that one person is doing it medically and one person is doing it recreationally? Is it just because they don't have like an ailment, or at least an ailment you can't see, or like,
Because the doctor hasn't given them permission. Let me
yeah,
rephrase. The
yeah,
government hasn't given them permission.
yeah, yeah,
That is the difference. Is it's medical marijuana when the government gives you permission to use it medically.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
recreational. It's recreational when you don't. Excuse me. I guess when the government says we don't care what you do, yeah, it
yeah,
doesn't need to
yeah,
be assigned or prescribed to you at that point.
yeah.
Um,
and
excuse me.
and
And
also,
my big thing here, especially in South Carolina, as much as I want medical and as much as I'd love to see um, adult use, I think it'd be great for a tourist industry. I believe it'd be a great thing for
yeah,
the state. But really, what I want to see is stop ruining people's lives over a freaking plant.
oh yeah,
Stop
for sure,
arresting people for
sure,
less than an ounce.
sure,
Stop putting them in jail. Stop diverting our children from our schools through the school to prison pipeline because
yeah,
they had a little bit of pot and they talked back. So you get them for weed and insubordination or disorderly conduct. I just learned that the other day. Disorderly conduct is like one of the main charges that get our children from the school into the prison system.
yeah,
And exactly what is this disorderly conduct? Is it a young citizen speaking their First Amendment truths,
yeah,
or were they acting out and actually being violent and disruptive? Um,
yeah, yep. Now
so,
these very, very good points, Scott. I'm really, um I'm definitely, it was in what you're saying about how even there was still that conversation about, oh man, I wish more supporters turned out, um and them having that conversation, even in the midst of having so many legislators up there, if there weren't like, it's the people, the people of South Carolina. Like, what is it that even us as, I'm sure every like advocacy group always probably ask this question, but what is it that motivates people to come out? I think that's definitely the pursuit. Now, I think that we can have textbook answers as to why, but I think there's a little bit more nuance to that, that we have to take into consideration. I mean, especially when even in my experience of running into people that are supporters of legalization in South Carolina, but just really do not want their face out there saying that they are supporters. Like that is, and obviously, whether that is for straight up recreational or just overall legalization or even medical, as we're seeing, there are people that are just having a hard time saying, I'll come out here and show my face. Um, Big ups to those who do come out, because when I think about our lobby day and the people who showed up, like that's great. When I think about the rally that Shane Bush did, like people showing up and said, like, I definitely appreciate, and even the people who showed up to the press conference today for Compassionate Care Alliance, definitely majorly appreciate those folks. But I think there's a lot, that stigma ain't no joke. Stigma, being afraid of losing your job, like all of these things. Like I almost feel like there has to be a campaign about that kind of stuff.
That yeah, I mean, people are in fear of exercising their First Amendment right to speak out about cannabis issues because it could happen.
Yeah.
The joke you hear many times this time or coming up in about a month will be, 420 is or 421. Guess what? Surprise P test day.
Right.
Surprise drug test day. You
Right.
know, all because now, do they have surprise alcohol test the day after St. Patty's Day?
Absolutely
How
not.
many people are hungover here? That kind of thing. But I took along some of our signs with us, and I pulled out two of them. It's a plant, not a crime, and patients, not criminals. And I said something to Cody. I says, "Hey, I brought a couple of signs." He goes, "You better clear that with Jill." And Jill was talking to a legislator, and I don't know exactly who it was.
Yeah.
I've seen him before. But anyway, on the signs, you can see real small up there. Here's a representation. It's
Yeah.
not even really a pot leaf. It's
Right.
sort of a representation of a leaf. And right away, he came over and went, "No, not with those pot leaves on it.
Oh my goodness.
It would trigger the other legislators or something like that." I'm like, "Oh, you mean like the hops flower on the beer bottles, huh?" he wasn't so amused with me, but yeah.
No, of course not. I'm sure he wasn't, and that already kind of shows you what, like, it just, that kind of stuff definitely. Woo, that one
And
right
he's
there,
there.
Scott.
He's there talking to support cannabis or support medical cannabis anyway.
Yeah.
But don't show a picture of the flower. It's like, I mean, and that's a leaf, not a flower. But
Yeah, exactly. No, I get what you're saying. Like that's the kind of. Ooh, I had to pause for a second because that right there, that's that's ridiculous. Let me just, I'm no, I'm not sorry about this. That's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
so when you look at the
That's
picture of
ridiculous.
behind the podium of our press conference, and we had people holding signs, and you could tell just from the picture what it was about by reading the signs in the back. Here you have a bunch of suits. We could have been talking about
And how are we establishing trust with people that way? I mean, I'm not even saying that like it's one of those things that it just feels like in South Carolina. I'm sure this is across the board in different areas, though I'll talk about my own experience here so far, but in Arizona. But I mean, what is the deal? Like, how are we supposed to be connecting with community members like if we can't even like look like community members or look like people that are out and about, I don't know. I'm just, and it's not even about the fact of being in professional dress or things of that nature, but it's just you can't show the leaf, but that's literally how the thing that you're wanting to give to patients, this
hmm
is literally a part of that plant. Like what,
you can't
like
show them
if
a
we're gonna,
representation of that
yeah,
plant.
how about
Yeah,
we show like, hey, there's a like let's knock out the stigma for this. Like,
let's demystify it a little bit.
yeah,
Look, it's a pretty plant. Yeah,
let's
I
be a
mean,
leader. Let's be a leader, South Carolina, and let's say, hey, this is how we're going to view this. Not let's tuck it away. It doesn't need to be out there. Like it doesn't need to look like this or that.
well, and I've heard my own senator say, she didn't want to see these signs with pot leaves all over the fronts of these stores and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Somehow or another, that particular plant, offends her. I don't know if a potato offends her. They make vodka from potatoes, I mean, do potatoes offend my senator? Yeah, I happen to already mention, hops, rye, barley. There's lots of
yeah,
plants that they make alcohol from. Are you offended by any of those plants or pictures of those plants?
yeah.
Um,
Which by the way, speaking of alcohol, when I went to a panel about beverage laws and beverage policy and things like that, and one of the moments within that panel, they started talking about CBD seltzers, Delta 8 seltzers, things like that. And it was very, first off, it was interesting to hear people's lack of knowledge in it, even people who did, like, these were brewers, right? and their
Mm-hmm.
lack of knowledge of it, and also how like here a lot of them were like kind of also fighting for some freedoms within alcohol or just within just within beer, right? And some of the crossroads that they're at, some of the obstacles that they face. And then when it came to cannabis, which when I was listening, I was like, man, they're kind of going through some similar things we are. Like they're not in prohibition, but they could potentially be a very good example of how South Carolina treats things like alcohol and drugs and things of that nature. And then when they started talking about cannabis, some of them were like clearly just not really trying to deep dive into that, and whether it was because they supported it or just didn't have enough knowledge. And I was like, man, you know, here are beer people, and some of them are not rocking with understanding more about cannabis. And I thought that that was wild. Like I felt like that was really wild. I talked to some of them afterwards, and some of them were like, listening to what I had to say, but it's just like, hey, we're kind of like fighting the same fight here. Like, like we're in that same position. Like so, yeah. I don't see why that really irritates me. I don't like I just don't think that that's reflective of the people of South Carolina. It's hard to convince me of that it's reflective of the people of South Carolina, that they're just grossly offended by a pot leaf.
Not the majority of them, and polls have shown that over and over again. Not the majority of them. The majority of our voters support marijuana law reform, support more so medical, but there's still a pretty good strong um, contingency of our voters that don't believe people should go to jail for simple possession. They think we
For
should
a fact.
decriminalize. They think we should, some think we should
Mm.
even go as far as ending prohibition and bring on adult use. Um, so there's a good count. It's just when you get to our legislators, the ones that are supposed to be representing the voters, um, they seem to see it differently. And now, mind you, when you talk about the voters, how many people actually go out and vote? How
Yeah.
many? I mean, a larger portion are registered, but I think last primary it was 12% or something like that of the
Right.
registered voters showed up. So maybe they are actually representing most of their voter base because those other people that support cannabis aren't voting or something.
Right. Could be.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I
Theories.
don't
Theories.
know.
Yeah. Well,
It's
I whipped something up that I thought would be hilarious to share. So, um, where's Weldon?
instead of where's Waldo.
There he is.
All right, I
There's our
appreciate
guy.
it. There he is. Yeah, I was on my tippy toes, so I could. They put a couple of real tall people in front of me. They're like, "Oh, Weldon's here. Uh oh."
You're back there. I saw when we got this in our group chat, and that was so funny. I was like, of course, all I thought of was where's Waldo? Where's he at? Where's he at? Where's Weldon? There's Cody. Cody comes
There
on
he
the
is.
show from time to time. Yeah, very, very funny, very funny. But
Hilarious.
I do
And a
appreciate you
perfect
being up there.
segue
Yeah, go for it.
into our cannabis trivia question of the night. Now, I know we are pre-recorded tonight, so folks, I'm going to ask you to drop your questions in the chat or your answers in the chat anyway. We're doing the format of this a little bit different because I think last time I forgot to give an answer. So, we're going to start with the question. Question tonight is in the knowledge category, and if you're keeping score, it is a 40-point question. The question is, what sneaker company created an all hemp sneaker? Was it Adidas, Nike, Skechers, or Reebok? Again, I'll read the question one more time. In the knowledge category, 40-pointer. What sneaker company created an all hemp sneaker? Adidas, Nike, Skechers, and Reebok. Now, I'm going to do a little bit of a segue here tonight because we are enjoying our cannabis trivia questions, but as you know, we're trying to focus a little bit more on fundraising so we can get a few more things done. We are now offering, and I think I may have mentioned it last time, would you like to be a sponsor of our trivia questions on our cannabis conversation? Promote your business, and we will kind of mention your business as we do the trivia question answer segment. So if you are interested in being a sponsor of our trivia question segment, go ahead and visit our website at scnormal.org. Go to the contact page and send me a message telling me that you're interested in sponsoring that, and we'll get you hooked up. Kind of like the folks at 420printmedia.com for donating signs to us. All righty, so let's get. Almost dropped the card. I wouldn't have had an answer for you. Let's get back to the question and answer. So one more time, that question is in the knowledge category, a 40-point question. What sneaker company created an all hemp sneaker? Adidas, Nike, Skechers, or Reebok? And the answer is Adidas.
Ooh, I would have been wrong.
I didn't know. Did they make the sole from hemp too? It said all hemp. I would hope so.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
That
pretty cool.
is very cool.
Yeah,
yes. All righty. That was our cannabis trivia for tonight. One more time. Let's see that Where's Weldon. Do you have it handy?
Yeah, I got it right here. I got it right here, my guy.
There he is.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Where's Weldon? He's
Too
right
funny.
He's right there.
Thank
and
you
everybody
for
looks
that.
happy
That made my
and stuff.
day.
You know, everybody looks happy, and that's good. You know, they're to fight the fight. You know what I'm saying? So, good stuff. Yep. And also, thanks for going out there, Scott. You've been on the move, and that is definitely appreciated. So,
I told myself this year. I mean, now that I've had I have to admit, earlier years with this chapter have been a little challenging. But now that I've got a pretty strong team working with me, it frees me up from having to worry about what's going to happen here, there, or the other thing.
Right.
And I can actually, and so I told myself, I want to make sure I get up to Columbia more often.
For a fact.
I hate to drive. And as a matter of fact, on the way home today, I drove 25 miles in the wrong direction before I realized I was going in the wrong direction.
Oh, that's the worst.
So I had an extra hour to my trip home, but boy, it's nice country out there, and I made really good time in the wrong direction. You know,
that's great. It's scenic, and you're probably like, wait a minute, I can't wait to win out here.
Why is my freaking, why is Waze trying to keep telling me to turn around? I'm going towards Charleston. No, I wasn't.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Glad that you're out there, and glad that you made it up to the metro so that we could have some representation there. So for sure.
I was happy to get up. I was able to actually get a couple of people some of our Krispy Kreme promo signs that came in for this event as well.
Nice.
So I was able to kind of hand some off. That'll save us a couple dollars in shipping them to them later. So that's always a nice thing.
Oh, nice. Very nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Doing the Lord's work. As they say. Well, while you're out and about,
spreading the word.
Spreading the word, the gospel, the truth. While you're out there in Columbia, I'm out here, semi-West Coast. I'm out in the West.
The Midwest.
Midwest, as they would say, properly. Yes, I'm out here in Phoenix, Arizona. So I guess I'll tell you a little bit about my time out here, especially some of the dispensaries. I was able to visit a couple of dispensaries while I've been down here, and just wanted to kind of talk about just being in a state that is legalized and what that looks like. A lot of conversations that I have, or when people are talking about marijuana legalization in South Carolina, like a complaint that sticks out of my mind is to talk about the smell, and like people saying, I don't want to smell marijuana everywhere. And I can attest that out of the 4 days that I've been here so far, there's only been one time that I've smelled, 2 times, officially 3. And I'll tell you why. 3 times that I have actually smelled marijuana. And that's because 2 of those times I was in a dispensary. And then the other time was when I was grabbing something to eat, and there were people that were out, and they were smoking outside. which like I was like, yo, right on, the freedom to do so. They were smoking right outside, and it was the same experience that it would be if someone were smoking cigarettes outside. So it didn't feel out of place, just because simply some people smoke, some people don't. It was regular. It wasn't a big deal. It wasn't a big deal, and they weren't they also were not making a big deal out of it. They were just enjoying a product that they enjoy. So imagine that. The world is not falling apart. Scott, you're talking, but you're on mute. But go ahead.
I'm an ex-cigarette smoker. I smoked cigarettes for a lot of years. I think I've quit for over 20 now. But um, as an ex-smoker, you tend to be more cognizant of smoking around you. Um, you know, my wife and I would go out to dinner and get a drink or something like that, and come home and go, "Oh man, we smell like tobacco. I got to change." That kind of thing. Where all those years of smoking, I never really thought about it or cared about it. And so I understand people when they say, I don't like the smell of marijuana. I don't like the smell of tobacco. And I got to agree, in a closed space, I don't really, I mean, in an open space, so there's times I like the smell of weed. I mean, I like the smell of tobacco, especially a freshly lit cigarette. I'm like, ooh, that almost smells good. Not good enough to smoke one, but that smells good. Yeah.
Right.
If it was a fresh lit joint, I'd be like, that smells good enough to smoke. That's the only difference for me.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. And I think that is, again, it's just an element. It's just another thing that's just a part of, if you're a smoker, you're a smoker. And here they were smoking, with a group, and then they smoked, and then it was done, and then bim, like there wasn't this big, oh, every street corner smells like,
Well, and if they're
marijuana.
going to start arresting people for the way they smell, there's going to be a lot of church ladies in trouble. Um,
Tell it like it is, Scott. Tell it like it is.
oh man, that's one thing that gets me is when there's just so much perfume, your eyes water, and
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
ah.
Assaulting the senses. For a fact, it was so far. It's been once again, there wasn't a whole lot of before I was able to go to a dispensary. It wasn't like I was actually coming in contact a lot in public with um marijuana. So I wanted to kind of go over, before I go into the dispensaries, like this is what these are the Arizona laws and penalties. They've got possession 1 ounce, more than 1 ounce, to 2.5 is a petty offense. The 1 ounce is no penalty, no fine. More than an ounce to 2.5 ounces. Once again, no incarceration, but you do get a fine. And then more than then if you've got this isn't funny, it's just but it is comical at this point. More than 2.5 ounces to less than 2 pounds is a felony. 6 months to 1.5 years. 2 pounds less than 4 pounds, another felony. 4 pounds or more. That just sounds, so even though it's legal, this is just another example, by the way, of how you can legalize something. That doesn't mean that it's the most perfect thing. I think giving someone a felony charge I think that's excessive. That's just,
Well, I mean, yeah, that's absolutely excessive. But my question many times, and now mind you, I've been a cannabis consumer for a lot of years, but yeah, up to an ounce, no penalty. What was it?
mhm,
Anything between an ounce and 2.5 ounces, a
petty offense.
$300 fine.
Yep.
It's a petty offense, which means it doesn't even carry the weight of a misdemeanor charge.
Right.
It's like a traffic ticket of $300. But why would you need to carry around more than 2.5 ounces? I mean,
So
in most cases, unless you just went shopping for your for your supply and you bought a quarter pound or something like that.
well, yeah, that's well, I think that sometimes it's like, okay, I look at it like this. If you've got a pound, right? Um more than likely you're probably trying to sell that pound, or you might be trying to sell one idea, one iteration of this is that you're trying to sell it, right? And I think that what something like this does is that it keeps people, and there's, this is just me not giving I can't say really giving like an opinion on it, just a thought, like a theory of what could be going on is that, you know how you got independent contractors for stuff, right? Like like I'm an independent contractor. Like, I
Well,
have a side hustle where I sell, these products. Well, I feel like this is that version of like, oh, I got a pound. I'm gonna sell, eighths to people that I know and make my own money as a side hustle without having
I
to get
mean,
permit.
in theory, I like that, and if it was on your person, but when we talk possession charges, this could be even in your home. You possess it, it's in your
Yeah,
home.
that's what
Um,
I mean.
at that point, I'd question because I'm one of those obsessively weird people that I would love to have like a quarter or a half an ounce of every strain I've ever purchased in my life.
Yeah,
Now
yeah,
that would be a lot of weight
yeah,
eventually.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and, and it would be like my wine cellar. So,
yeah. That's a
when we're
good point.
talking about weight, is it all one strain? Or is it a little bit of a whole bunch of different strains? Because
Yep.
now, compare that to the alcohol. Is a bottle of wine's fine,
Right.
and like a case of 12 is even good. But
Yep.
once you get over 12 of them, are you starting to sell that stuff,
Yeah, that's
or
a good point. Yeah.
do you have a wine cellar and you're putting it away for future consumption? Uh,
Yeah. That's a good
so
point. That's a good point, Scott. Yeah.
you know, with this kind of model, even though it's legal in Arizona for simple possession and even up, a petty fine for up to 2.5 ounces, you could not be a wine collector, a pot collector, like a wine
Yeah, yeah,
collector,
yeah, exactly. That's a
because
good.
you would easily get over that 2.5 ounces and get into felony range in no time.
Well, I think that both of these things are first off, that's a great once again, that's a great thought because it is kind of like, well, how come I can't have more? What if I'm a can of connoisseur and that's what I do.
I just
And
want to
then
hoard some,
yeah, and then here's me like, what if I'm like I've got a little side hustle, like I'm trying to, like I think that also is both of these things. It's funny that like you're coming from like that connoisseur side, and then I'm coming from like this kind of this money side of like, what if this is what we're doing? Like it kind of reminds me. It's not the exact same concept, but like when you go to Sam's Club and buy a bunch of candy, and then you're like, well, I'm going to sell this candy. Like, that's what I bought a bunch of it because I'm about to go sell it. That is, so it's like, it's like, I'm going to make this money. So I think it just kind of, it's interesting how like, that's not a thing. Meanwhile, this is what people do. I think that this has more of like an impact of not being competitive for like people who have like retail shops and things of that nature. That's what that feels more like to me, is that I don't want you to end up having this kind of freedom and then being a competitor to the people that we're giving permits to. And I think that that's like a government way of protecting that.
Hmm.
So much
Yeah, because go ahead.
Yeah, much. No, just saying, much discussion there. Go ahead.
Well, I was just kind of taking note that that first section was about possession, and then they dropped down to the sale portion.
Right.
And anything up to an ounce, you can transfer, no penalty. An ounce and 1 gram. Now you're at a felony, and 1.5 to 3 years in jail and $150,000 fine.
That is
And
wild, man.
to me, that's wild because I'm the kind of person that I'm frugal. I guess I'll put it that way. I'm
Right.
frugal. I don't buy a quarter ounce at a time because it's too freaking expensive that way. I
Yeah.
buy a quarter pound at a time because you get a better value. You get a lower price per gram when it breaks down. Blah 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 blah. That's felony transfer. That's felony possession in Arizona. I mean, it's still criminalizing people because
Yeah.
of the way they shop. I wanted to go to Sam's Club and buy my weed in bulk.
Right. Oh God, could you imagine Costco weed? Oh my
Costco.
God. Oh my.
Buy that shit in bulk, man.
Yo, that'd be crazy. That would be crazy. That'd be crazy. That'd be crazy, man.
Sorry, I had to go there.
What a time. What a time. Kirkland brand weed. Um Kirkland
Kirkland
brand.
strain.
Sam's choice. Great value. Oh God, can you imagine? So yeah, so I'm out here. So I just wanted to give you guys kind of that idea of what's going on out here in Arizona, right? So then I was able to go to dispensaries. I went to 2 dispensaries, and I've got a couple of videos that I can share with you guys, and I'll just kind of talk through some of these things. But I only have videos of True Leaf. So let me.
There's my True Leaf bag.
There you go. True
May
Leaf,
contain
yes.
THC.
Lots of conversations too centered around True Leaf and some of the things they got going on in Florida. I'm not going to touch on that just yet, but I just want to let you guys know that it is something that we've seen. Just kind of digging a little bit more into it to understand, because we talked about True Leaf before here on the on Cannabis Conversations, and some of the things that they were working towards.
Were
But
they working with Circle K? Was that the one working with the gas stations?
they weren't.
No. Okay.
Oh man, it's getting dark out here for me. I'm like, woo! All right, we're gonna have to wrap this up pretty soon. Okay, so yeah, I went to True Leaf. So I just want to let you guys know that's something that we've been thinking about. I might talk about it on the show. I need to get a little bit more clarity on it. But I did go to a dispensary right here in Phoenix, Arizona. Okay, downtown Phoenix. They're right there on the corner, and I was able to take a look into their dispensary. So when I walked in, they checked me in. First, they asked if I had like a pickup, which there were a lot of pickup orders, by the way, which was pretty interesting. But you could walk right in, get some pickup, put your pickup or get your pickup order. They had ATM machines in there. You could do cash. You could do card. They checked me in, checked my ID. And then there was actually someone doing a pop-up there, just like a brand called oh my God, I've forgotten the name of the brand. Oh man, now I feel terrible. I had a great conversation with this person. Anyway, so they were having a pop-up. They had like these kind of cannabis infused cigarillos, and then we were able to get in. So let me see here. Let me show you at least a little bit. Now, because it's still considered like medical, I think there was still some kind of discrepancy about whether or not I could record, but here we are. Hold on. All right, bam. All right, so this right here is the inside of, this is a half of the, like on this other side right here, you can see like there is like a little cash register and things like that. Make my screen bigger. You can see a little cash register. I didn't do this other half of the dispensary because there were people there. I didn't want to film people against their consent, because that's still, that's a private matter, right? So, some people have medical cards, things of that nature. So, but you see display cases and things like that here. There are, and each display case had something different. Like one had edibles, one had, concentrates, like things like that. So I'm going to do, this is a little quick, like panning view. You can see the door right here. That's where we came through. So there was like one door you came into is kind of like a little lobby area. And then on top, and you win that lobby area, you got checked in. There was a dude who was standing right here in kind of the doorway. And then you popped in. They checked your ID again, and then you were able to just browse around. This shelf right here, you'll see right in front has concentrates, and then had literature about the different types of concentrates, which I found to be pretty helpful. This particular, like with the concentrates, and you'll also see with the flour, there was only they didn't have like all of their supply out in the front. It was just like, here are some samples of this. You can take a look at it. And then they would have different descriptors and things like that. I think that's all for that one. And then when it came to the flour, they had them in these cool little jars. So you'd pick them up, you could see right inside. So you could get all up in there, all the trichomes, all the things. So they had a little nug there for you. You could also use that little nozzle that's on the side for smelling the herb. And these are all eighth, the prices for eighths, right? So Gush Mints, which is a really cool one, by the way. It's a hybrid strain, and it was definitely has some good, very good on the nose, rather. But there you go, $40 an eighth right there, $55 an eighth. They definitely had it kind of like tiered out. Scott's like, dear God. They definitely.
I'm drooling, but their pricing is a little higher.
Ooh, yeah. They definitely were kind of. It looked like they had this kind of tiered system, right? And I kind of noticed this in other dispensary as well. Like at the bottom, you've got your $25 an eighth. Then they just kind of went up 25, 30, 40, 55.
Up to
And
the top shelf.
Yes, exactly. So you definitely see the same kind of element within like alcohol as well. Boom, and then
now is this the True Leaf or is this a different one?
This is True Leaf. This is still True Leaf.
Okay. Did they just have flour or did they have ground flour?
It looks like they just had ground. I didn't see like a lot of pre-rolls or anything like that. I did see flour itself. Let me see too.
I had picked up from a True Leaf a ground flour at like $25 a quarter.
There you go.
Hey, I don't need it as a nug if it's $25
You're
a quarter.
Like frugal Scott.
Frugal Scott, $100 an ounce. I'm a happy boy.
Let me add in. What is it? Oh, here we go. I've got another video for you. This is what the concentrates were looking like. Hold on one second. Where'd that little video go? Another quick one for you. Nope, that's the exact same one I just showed you. Hold on a second. Present. Hold on. So the way that they had their, yeah, this is it right here. Here we go. There we go. Taking the music off because we don't need any copyright infringement, copyright strikes. But as you can see, boom, concentrates. And this is how they had it out there for you, so you can take a look at that color.
And is that by the gram?
Yes, as well. Yep. Yes.
I'd assume so.
And I didn't get to. They had the information. Here's another interesting thing to see. I'm gonna take this back. You can kind of see it in this video, but as you can see, like all the information right here, right? The labels, total cannabinoids, total THC, total CBD. Like, it's always fascinating to see the different requirements for either each state or about what they choose to put on the labels, what kind of information they choose to put in there. I personally, I'm always preaching about the COAs. I think it's very valuable. And I had a really great conversation with a worker at JARS, which was the other cannabis dispensary that I went to, where he was talking about, he said, some people come in here and they don't, they just think that the higher the THC potency, that means that's the higher quality of flower, but that's not the case, and I think that that's something very important, especially when we have conversations with legislators where their biggest thing is, oh well, what about the potency and the high potency? It's like, it's not all about that. It is not all about just having this mega dosage of THC for everybody. One of the workers at True Leaf was like, she's like, yeah, I've got ADD and I take larger portions or larger dosages of THC because she said I use it in replacement of my, of like traditional medicine. But someone like me who has a sensitivity to THC, like I'm not looking for something that's going to sit me down like that. Like I'm looking for something that's going to either something I'm going to microdose or something that's going to assist me with my anxiety or just like flare ups in general. Those are the kinds of things that flare ups of anxiety. Those are the kinds of things that I may be looking for. So I did think that um, it was something to note that as someone who is much more of a um, not high dosage person of THC, there weren't a lot of options for someone like me. Unless I do something like there wasn't CBD dominant flower, right? Like that's not going to be something that you're seeing here because of the fact that what is most valuable in these kind of spaces is marijuana, like traditional marijuana. But there's plenty of people that are just like me who they're not looking for high potency, but I'm someone who I do like to smoke flower just as much as I like to vape or something like that. I'm not a big edibles fan, so slicing up my edibles isn't really. It's something I could do, but it's just not the most convenient thing for me. So that was pretty interesting in itself too. What else did I have here? I think that's pretty much. I did some interviews and things like that, but I just kind of held off on anything with people and just wanted to show you guys how some of this stuff shows up in the dispensaries. Scott, did you have your hand raised just now?
No, I was scratching my head.
I was like, you don't have to raise your hand. But
teacher,
it
teacher.
was exactly. You don't have to ask to go to the bathroom. It was a really great experience. Yeah, exactly. So then the next place that I went to was called Jars, and Jars was another cannabis dispensary. How they operated was a little bit differently. They had you would walk in, you get checked in outside, then you walk in, then they had like a little window. I'm guessing for like pickups or things like that. And then if you wanted to see like all the products, you would be escorted by a worker within the company who would take you to your like wherever they had like 1 through 10 of like pretty much these registers that you could be at.
Okay, little viewing areas or service areas.
Yeah, exactly. And then they'd sit there and say, "Hey, what do you need? What would you like?" And then just take you through the whole spiel. Now they had way more product on their shelves than other folks, but they were also very adamant about locally grown things, which I thought was pretty cool. Talking about their own kind of like bud that was grown in Tucson and things of that nature, and how they were selling it within the shop. So they had other brands too, but they were I think their company started in Michigan. So it was cool seeing how they would do it versus how Trulieve did it. And I asked the question about, is it mandated that they operate in that way? Like kind of, of course you have to show the ID, but then after that, is it show the ID? And then, the way that they had it, like someone escorted you to the back. That didn't happen at Trulieve. So that also shows you that some of these dispensaries just also have their own way that they want to have their own setup of what your experience is like as the consumer, right? There's regulations, but then there's also creativity at play and customer service at play about what kind of experience are we giving the consumer. So I thought that was an interesting one, and interesting that wasn't as heavily dictated. So yeah, very, very cool experience overall, though.
Sounds fun. Absolutely,
Yeah.
sounds fun.
Yeah, it was. I think it just, I'm always in the space. I feel like in the world of cannabis, like I feel like the gluten-free person, like how gluten-free people probably feel at like like for food. That's how I feel sometimes in the cannabis world, where I'm like, yeah, you got anything for me? Like, you got anything I can rock with, so but it's really cool getting the information and fascinating and seeing like all different types of people coming to get cannabis. coming to get marijuana,
Young and
like
old.
just all kinds of people, like all kinds of people. And I thought that was amazing. And guess what? There were not like, it wasn't crazy. It was just regular. It was normal. It wasn't a big deal. It just was,
And
and
it shouldn't be a big deal,
yeah,
It really shouldn't.
yeah. So, time for a
Well,
cannabis trivia question.
yeah, I see we're all like 5 minutes till our till our 1 hour mark, so I figured I
Look,
will
look
hit
at
this
us.
one.
Look at us thinking that we were going to do a shorter show today.
we got a lot to say. But yeah, I'm going to throw out one more trivia question. We're going to do question and answer right away. And then I guess we should probably wrap up unless there's something I'm forgetting. But let's go ahead and hit the question. Again, it is a knowledge category. This one is a 50-pointer. In Colorado, medical marijuana dispensaries outnumber Starbucks by 6-1, 4-1, or 3-1. Now, I don't know how old this game is, and they may have changed the answers, but let's do that again. In Colorado, medical marijuana dispensaries outnumber Starbucks by 6-1, 4-1, or 3-1. Again, if you're watching this, leave your questions down in the comments. I'm again going to take just a couple of moments to remind you folks that we are looking for sponsors for our podcast and for our trivia segment and for our newsletter and for all kinds of fun stuff. We're starting to look for our sponsors. We have actually created a sponsorship brain trust, and we're trying to develop our sponsorship programs so that we can have a lot more fun activities for you to participate in and let our legislators know that we support cannabis here in South Carolina. So if you are interested in sponsoring South Carolina NORML, again, visit our website, scnormal.org, go to the contact page, and reach out to us. We will get you hooked up. All right, let's go back to the answer for tonight's question. Second question, knowledge quest category, 50-point question. In Colorado, medical marijuana dispensaries outnumber Starbucks by 6-1, 4-1, or 3-1. Answer is 3-1. For every one Starbucks, there are 3 medical cannabis dispensaries, at least when this game came out.
There's a lot of Starbucks too. Y'all know Starbucks be out here. Y'all know Starbucks be out here. Look, I'm just creeping in the dark right now on this podcast. This is great.
Well, we're gonna let you go
Lurking.
inside in just a couple of minutes here. I guess we should kind of call it a night. I want to thank everybody who's hopefully joined us here on our pre-recorded podcast. We will be back next Wednesday, as always, at 7 p.m. live, but we might be doing this like pre-record thing a little bit more every now and again in the future. But anyway, before we end, I do want to remind you all to follow us on our social media, Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. But mainly subscribe to our YouTube channel and click that bell button so that you get notifications when we go live. Otherwise, events coming up in April. I mean, this is our last conversation before April hits. Starting on the 1st of April, we've mentioned it a couple times, Krispy Kreme Donut Fund. Scan the barcode, go buy a certificate, forward it off to your local law enforcement officer, and let them enjoy some nice donuts. Also, our friends at the Not Burger Pub in Somerville are doing a month-long fundraiser for our organization as well. So go up there, get one of their specialty burgers that are the fundraiser burger for the month, and a couple of the drinks as well, and they will donate a couple of bucks to us for every burger and or drink on their special menu for this month. 2 420 events coming up this month as well. We will be out on 420 at the Low Tide Brewing on Johns Island here in the Charleston area, and also again in Somerville at the Not Burger Pub in Somerville. So come out and spend a little bit of time with us on 420 at one of those 2 locations. Also, another one is